easier. I'm going to let folks in.
All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. Just waiting for a few more people to come in.
Monica, will you please unmute yourself? I inadvertently put you on mute. Yep. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Looking at one more person connecting to audio. And we'll get going. All right, so as always, we're recording this session today and we will share that link. Just so everybody knows too, one of the things that Amy's working on, Amy Song, part of our team, and we'll do an intro here in a second, is to ultimately create a YouTube channel where you can find all these recordings from previous customer forums to understand anything you want to. We do a lot of review here. We'll talk wherever you want to take the discussion. So let's start with introductions. I'm Boyd Relack. I've been with the team a couple of years. I'm also an investor in the company, and we have Monica Magani helping today. Monica's going to run the meeting and help me with the chat. And Amy Song will be with us for part of it as well. So if you haven't submitted questions, feel free, as always, to submit questions in the chat. And we will do our best to answer those. And Monica may answer some, or Amy may answer some offline, just kind of responding to the group, as well as maybe we can address it as a whole. So did anybody want to go ahead and add more information into the chat now? But I'm going to start today with just making sure everybody understands. So for most of you, we recognize some of the names. You know, we have evolved this product. We're on NuCalm 3.0. Remember, 1.0 was a TENS device, as well as a large GABA pill. We used to call it a horse pill that you would chew and hold under your tongue for 2 minutes and synthesize the GABA. 2.0 became a transdermal cream with GABA infused, and GABA is important based on the condition of your body, and we'll get into that. And then 3.0 is the software and the discs, which are electro medicine. So, and then the whole journey has been, you know, this system used to sell for a single person to purchase it years ago. It was nearly $7,000. And today we've gotten our subscriptions down to software only. And that was one of the questions. We'll talk about how effective the software is without the disc. But, you know, for most of you who should know this, our software now comes in 4 different packages or bundles, if you will. Edge subscription is either monthly or annual, and that's all 6 channels. The Sleep Suite is Rescue, PowerNap, and Deep Sleep. The Peak is Rescue, Focus, and Ignite. And Core is the original Rescue, PowerNap, and Flow State. And then anybody can subscribe a la carte. So a lot of times what happens is many of you will experience NuCalm and want to share it with folks and ask, like, what's the best way to get started? It's a loaded question, right? Talk to your friends, send them to us. They can always send a note to support@nucalm.com asking about, you know, subscriptions. We'll set up time with people to kind of dial them into the proper subscription. But the beauty is that the software, because of the power of the software, it works independently, right? And we wouldn't offer subscriptions if it didn't. So any of those bundles, either on a monthly or annual basis, as well as many of you know that we also offer a multi-year mastermind subscription, which is 5-year for Edge. But the beauty of the mastermind, and that's $34.95, is every mastermind gets to gift 1 year of Edge for 5 different people. So that's like a $3,000 value in and of itself, besides getting discs, et cetera, getting to purchase discs at half off. So at this point, as you're adding questions to chat, et cetera, I'm going to jump into some of the pre-submitted questions, and let me see if there's any better order based on what I'm seeing. Let me jump into the one question that says, how effective is the program without using the discs? Okay. I think all of us know to some degree, our body in the morning starts producing cortisol, right? And cortisol, I liken it to like the rocket boosters on the space shuttle. somewhere between 2.5, 2 hours prior to our natural wake-up time. That's the time your body awakens, generally without prompting, without an alarm clock. Your body is firing cortisol to lift you out of your sleep cycles to be cognizant. And usually we become cognizant around 12, 13 hertz in our brain frequencies. So in the morning, you're fighting cortisol. So if you're doing what many of us like to do is like top off our night of sleep with rescue. What does that mean? If you wake up normally, your body wakes up at whatever time it does, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and you wake up a little early, people will say, can I use deep sleep? And we tell you, don't use deep sleep too close to your natural wake-up time. I'd say within a couple hours, because deep sleep is the very bottom of the frequency range targeted at 0.5 hertz at the bottom of delta. So it's almost like you've got an anchor tethering you to 0.5 hertz, and then cortisol is firing to wake you up. If you did that and you were listening to deep sleep and we're anchoring you deep, you may wake up groggy or foggy in your brain. You may just kind of like be very lethargic. So instead, use rescue or PowerNap, because they both target, deep theta, for 30 minutes or 40 minutes or even 20 minutes with PowerNap, because that will kind of give you the final topping off of your sleep for the night. And that will make you very refreshed going into your morning routine. So back to the question on discs, how does the software work without the disc? The software works without the disc. So think of adding the disc as clinical grade. Okay, but that also depends on the individual person and their condition of their body. If you're fighting deeper stress or anxiety, if you have chronic stress, if you have an inherited anxiety issue, or you have some type of systemic anxiety, you may need to use the disc to really make sure the brainwave entrainment process works. And we'll talk about the disc in a little bit, but the entrainment process means in rescue and in PowerNap generally, and also in flow state, we're sending binaural frequencies, which means tones and vibrations to each ear that are different. We develop a pattern, and with that pattern, we create a pattern that then brings your brain to where we're targeting it, bringing you down to the bottom of theta with PowerNap and rescue. But before you get there, we basically frequency hop. That's the entrainment process. What does that mean? Between delta at 0.5 to 4 hertz, theta at 4 to 8, alpha at 8 to 12, and we all know that beta starts around 12 and goes up to the 30s. We are changing frequencies to create these patterns into each ear differently to begin with, until we get the brain to follow the pattern. And that's how we take you to a targeted range. In this case, we target around 4 hertz with rescue and PowerNap. So if you don't find that that's working at times, or if your body already has some extra stress involved, not just stress, but could be a medical condition, etc., you may need to use the disc, because it will really enhance the entrainment process, and it will prepare the body, and it's working on a different side of the autonomic, which I'll get into in a minute. So think of, there's 2 major nervous systems, right? Everybody knows that, I think by now, if you've been with us a bit. There's the voluntary nervous system, the one that we get to control, thinking, what am I going to have for dinner? I need to go to the grocery store, make a list, walking, talking. All of that is voluntary. Everything that is synonymous with automatic, being part of the autonomic nervous system, is what keeps us alive. So there's 4 major systems there: circulatory system, our digestive system, respiratory, and our endocrine system. And there's various disease states that we used to affiliate with aging. And somewhat it is true, but that aging process has more to do, quite honestly, with the amount and quality and quantity of sleep every day on a consistent night over night basis. Because when you don't get good sleep, you're basically cheating your body and you're accelerating your demise. And that's when you start to see conditions like hypertension, all the way down to really bad things like ulcerative colitis and things that just damage our body and accelerate our aging. But the beauty of what NuCalm is accomplishing for you is accelerated recovery, because we're putting you into deep REM sleep or into deep sleep at night. So it does work without the disc. If you want the clinical grade, or if your body needs more, then yes, use the disc. And what is the disc? So I'm going to pause here and just see if there's any related questions before I dig into the disc itself. There's another question on sleep. We'll come back to that. I'm looking here because I'm going to get into the first question, our pre-submitted questions as well. Okay, so let's talk about sleep cycles, circadian rhythm, sleep pressure, and what our day should be like. So when we wake up in the morning, our brain starts producing sleep pressure, which produces a chemical called adenosine. And adenosine is a byproduct that basically, think of an hourglass that builds throughout the day and throughout the evening until you go to sleep. When you go to sleep, it's like turning the hourglass over and draining the adenosine out of your body. By the time you wake up, your adenosine is flushed. But as soon as you wake up, the sleep pressure starts coming back and you're starting to reproduce adenosine. Sleep experts will tell you the best thing you can do is to be religious about the time you go to bed and the time you sleep and the time you wake up, and perfect your 24-hour circadian rhythm. So that's the importance of getting your body fine-tuned. Think of your body as a beautiful machine. If you tune it to a perfect circadian rhythm, it's going to improve your sleep. And sleep is really the magic of keeping us living long and healthy lives. So if you need to use the disc, what does the disc do? Let's go back to the autonomic nervous system, two sides. The sympathetic side, you would think sympathetic means easy, relaxing, but it's not. That's the excitatory side. So think of sympathetic as high energy. That's the excitatory side of the autonomic. The inhibitory side is the parasympathetic. So the disc works on the sympathetic side, and the software, the music, in a sense, you hear, it's really what you don't hear is what's the magic of NuCalm, is working on the inhibitory side. So the disc is, so let's back up. Dr. Holloway spent like 5 years at the Pavlov Institute in the 70s perfecting the disc. And it's actually a Tesla coil imprinted over a Lahovsky 6-layered multi-wave oscillator. And it's got electromagnetic frequencies, like a recipe stamped into it. So that's why we keep them in the Faraday bags, and everybody's familiar with the Faraday bags, okay? When you take them out, you put it on your left wrist, and I'll talk about alternative points, and then you put them back in the bag and you seal them. If you do that, you can travel with them, you can do anything, but still try and avoid putting the disc in a bag anywhere near anything electronic, okay? And if you put the disc outside of the bag near a computer, et cetera, over time, it's going to take the frequencies out. So we design and build the disc with these frequencies built in. What is the purpose? The purpose of the disc is to trigger the brain to release GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA A, GABA B. It's an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It also triggers the release of L-theanine that helps the absorption or synthesis of GABA, and L-tyrosine and some others. L-tyrosine also has more to do with firing neurotransmitters. So what GABA is going to do, it's going to message across your neuronal front and shut down the flow of cortisol and adrenaline. The disc is frequency tuned to your vagus nerve, which VAGUS is the largest nerve in your parasympathetic nervous system, and your hypothalamus. So it's going to interrupt the HPA axis. It's going to help stop the production or slow down the production and transference of cortisol and adrenaline. So think of it as pumping the brakes on the excitatory side of your autonomic nervous system. If you have high anxiety, if you have TBI, if you have PTS or PTSD, you should use the disc. Why? Because your sympathetic side generally doesn't allow you to kind of down-regulate, and the disc will help do that, okay? That's the purpose of GABA. So if the disc is working on the sympathetic side, the music you hear, think of the music. We put in music because you expect music, right? Nobody subscribed to something to silence and say, oh, that's wonderful. As humans, we're conditioned to hear music, but it's really not music. That's like the cherry on top that you get on your ice cream sundae. What you're really getting are tones and vibrations. In this case, through PowerNap, rescue, and flow state, they're binaural. We also years ago layered isochronic waveform over the top of all those. And in deep sleep, ignite, and focus, it's all isochronic, which are very similar wave tones. But you don't hear that. That goes through your auditory canal and it pipes right to your middle brain. And that's where the entrainment process works and takes you down and puts you into that meditative or fully relaxed state. There's another question. Should I fall asleep during rescue? Not necessarily, okay? Because at 4 hertz, you're at the bottom of theta, just above the top of delta, which is where you go deep, dreamless sleep. If you, let me restate this, you are in a sense falling asleep, right? Because theta is REM sleep. but you're not necessarily being unconscious. So if you don't become unconscious, that's okay. It's still likely working because you're at 4 hertz as long as you're in that state. People describe, do I feel heavy? They say, I felt like I was falling. All that is normal with dropping down into the frequency range of 4 hertz. Okay. I'm going to come back to sleep and all that. I'm just going to pause there. So to summarize, the disc, electromedicine, it's triggering the release of GABA A, GABA B, L-tyrosine, L-theanine. It's basically slowing down or down regulating your sympathetic side of your autonomic nervous system. And the software is creating parasympathetic dominance when they're in balance. That's homeostasis, and that's basically sleep, which we need every day. So let me give you some numbers real quick on sleep. The CDC says an adult male needs ideally 7 hours of sleep, and females need more. Adult males need 4 to 6 sleep cycles, basically the same for females. Why? Remember, cycling means you're dropping. So when you fall asleep, you're falling through alpha relatively quick, 12 hertz to 8 hertz. It's like, it can be 5 minutes. When you feel yourself dozing off, that means you're dropping through alpha. It's kind of like going into orbit, except you're coming down. Then you go into a non-REM cycle, and then you go into REM being theta. And your body's designed to cycle through light sleep, again, 12 to 8 hertz, REM sleep, 8 to 4 hertz, and deep sleep at 4 to 0.5. We enhance that at night with deep sleep. So deep sleep is either 50 minutes or 8 hours. So there is a question that says, where was this one about deep sleep? Okay, I also use the 8-hour deep sleep. So the question is, I always feel exhausted when I've done 30 minutes of rescue, but I don't have time in the day to do any longer. So first off, if you feel at the end of any rescue or PowerNap cycle that you're tired, that's your body telling you you need more. Okay. So the rule of thumb is, if you're going to take the time to do rescue, the longer you can do it, the better. People will say, and many of you know, you can loop our software. So I'm going to open up the app real quick and show you where that feature is and tell you why I don't recommend looping it. Okay. If you look here on the app, you'll see the different timings of rescue. And down here, these little buttons, one says loop and one says end chime. If you loop it, let me explain what happens. We're going through that entrainment process, right? We're going through frequency hopping between alpha, theta, and delta. Then we entrain you and trick your brain and pop you down to 4 hertz for rescue. We hold you there for whatever the majority of the duration of time is. In the last couple of minutes of each rescue and power nap and flow state track, we bring you back up to cognition around 12, 13 hertz. If you loop it, you're going to go back through that entrainment process, go back down to deep theta, and then come back out. So think of riding a roller coaster. Instead of riding a roller coaster that goes up and then comes back up and down and holds you and then goes back up, just use a longer duration of rescue. So instead of looping a 30-minute, say do a 50 or 70, but that's going to be better for you, and we're not changing your frequency of your brain up and down in the middle of the cycle. Okay, I know we're getting more questions popping up, so let's go backwards for a second. Monica, jump in anytime too, if you think anything is linked to where we're at.
Sure, Boyd, people are responding to your comments about the disc, about if they want to use it first thing in the morning, then is it okay to use the disc at night, to put the disc on at night in preparation for a morning session?
Yeah, so the disc lasts, basically, we say it this way, 2 to 4 hours. So, and we always say the discs are one-time use because we can't tell how your body's reacting to that disc. There are some indicators. People will say, if I get a rash, a red little dot, or if it's really hard to peel off, that's kind of good because your body's absorbing those frequencies. But if you're asking, if I use a disc in the morning, can I use it again later? Most of us just leave the disc on, okay? Generally, with deep sleep, you should not use a disc. Now, there's always an exception. I would say if somebody, and I've been working with somebody lately in the last couple of weeks who's got both PTSD and a TBI, if you need to work through some of that stuff, I would tell you to wear a disc at almost every opportunity. And so we have some folks that use a disc independently, just walking around in the middle of the day to kind of down-regulate that excitatory side of their autonomic nervous system. So I wouldn't reuse a disc. Now, if you feel like you just, for instance, if you did rescue in the morning, you did 30 or 40 minutes, whatever, and you need to take the disc off because you want your body to start adjusting back up. Because remember this, when we change your frequency and bring you out of rescue or out of PowerNap back up to 12 or 13 hertz, it doesn't mean your autonomic nervous system goes along for the ride. Your autonomic nervous system will adjust over time. One way to allow it to adjust faster, to come back up, is to take the disc off. Again, I wouldn't reuse it, but here's what you can do. If you know, remember on the page that the disc comes on, there's two sides to it. There's the glossy side that it comes on, and then the other side. If somehow you can separate that one disc, that used disc, I would tell you could use it at night for deep sleep for the same effect. It's just going to help you accelerate the effect of deep sleep. Did that kind of touch on it, Monica?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And then one more question Ness had was, during her session, her rescue session, her mind is very active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would tell you, I told somebody this the other day. These ranges are very interesting because it tells you how different people are. I had somebody who said to me a couple of weeks ago that they are so attuned to the disc that they literally cut the disc in quarters. And with 1/4 of the disc, she can feel that effect with just a quarter disc. Now, it is a Tesla coil, and I'm not sure the impact of cutting a disc, but that was a very unique example. Another one would be if you're overstimulated and you're not relaxing your mind during rescue, there's a couple things at play. One, you need to do more rescue, right? So sometimes people say to us, it's not working, I'm not getting down, etc. Well, one, are you using a disc? If you're not, use the disc, because that enhances, it prepares the sympathetic side to get faster to that homeostasis balance side, and it preps the brain for entrainment, because naturally our brains want to resist the entrainment process that we are doing with the software. If you need to use that, if you're not relaxing, I would tell you use the disc. I can give an example. I just flew to Birmingham last week in the morning, linked up with a friend of mine. We drove in 2 days, like 1,200 miles. And during the day, to enhance, when I was in the passenger side trying to get a quick rescue session going, I literally put a disc on my left wrist and I put a disc on the bottom of my foot. And maybe, Monica, if we have the ability, we can pop up and show you. But basically, if you think of the foot where the five toes are and that front arch, at the bottom of that front arch in the center is another pericardium traditional acupressure point that you can put the disc right there. So if you see where Monica is right there, where that thumb is, right? So I literally did that last week. I put a disc right there, and I put a disc on my left wrist where we're supposed to, at 3 fingers in, to enhance the ability for my body that was already tired but not quite ready to go down, to enhance the down regulation of the sympathetic side of the autonomic nervous system. And it worked. I did a quick session in like 30 minutes or less, and I popped back up and I was fresh, and I took off, and we ended up driving, and I drove another 4 hours or so. But my point to you is, if you need to use a disc because your brain is not relaxing, you need to do it. You may need to use 2. Okay. The other thing to think about, because people will ask us at times, can I do activity? No, you need to lay down, just like in the videos, relax and turn your mind off. Do either some yoga breathing, concentrate on clouds, something to down regulate your own mind, to release your mind, to let the entrainment process of the software work. And if you're using the disc, to also let the flow of GABA help slow down interfere with the HPA axis. So anything else around that? I'm just going to screen the questions again, Monica, because I think
I guess, how effective is it without the discs at all?
So think of it as percentages. The software works 100% on its own. If you use a disc, you're basically adding the clinical grade, right? Which I would say is another 15 to 20%. So the software, if you're in a normal, healthy condition, a fairly healthy condition, the software should work on its own. If you're not getting that relaxation, if you're not getting a full effect that you can tell, and nobody else can really tell except you as an individual, then use the disc for that extra piece. If you have certain conditions, like anything that interferes with your excitatory side, like a TBI or PTSD, use a disc. If you have any condition that is not allowing the entrainment process to work, because remember, the brain, again, wants to resist it, figure out the pattern. So what's happening? Our brain is so advanced. It's like a machine. It's like AI. Think of it this way. Our brain, even though we're trying to get it to relax and drop you down, your brain is naturally trying to figure out the pattern that's coming through the software into your head. And that's where many of the other so-called binaural companies, and there's hundreds out there, times they all come and go, they're not built by Dr. Blake Holloway. That's really the clinical grade difference of other binaural softwares. It's the entrainment process. And Dr. Holloway's entrainment process, which we really have a patent on, it's a part of our second patent, is so advanced. Nobody's ever broken it. We don't expect anybody will, because he had a very unique mind. He had 2 advanced degrees in naturopathic medicine. And he also had Asperger's. So he had an amazing, focused, and highly intelligent brain. He was a self-taught researcher much, and he figured out all these things around the entrainment process and the disc. But if you personally aren't getting the effect of rescue, there's 2 things: use a disc and rescue. If you notice, in every subscription I talked about, there's rescue, but not just use a disc. You have to keep doing rescue. You have to power through it, because think of a big iceberg. You're not going to break the iceberg down and pass through, you know, a shipping channel because the iceberg's blocking your way. You have to break the ice. You have to keep powering through NuCalm and keep at it with rescue to break down any built up stress or anxiety that your body may have. What else we got,
Other
Monica?
questions regarding the disc. One is using the Apple Watch, wearing the Apple Watch over the disc. And then what happens to the disc when it's outside of the bag, even if it's still on the bag?
So think of it, this is going to be a weird analogy, but it just popped into my head, so I'm going to share it. Think of the disc outside of the bag as either your pet or your child running around your front yard, and they're not locked in. Meaning what, Boyd? That disc now is susceptible to the electromagnetic frequencies in the room that may start to wear it down, tune it out, okay? So that's why we said earlier, when you take the disc out of the bag, you put your disc on your left wrist, 3 fingers, you put all the other discs back in the bag, and you seal the bag. You don't want them wandering near the street, in a sense. You don't want your discs being near a phone or near a computer outside of this bag, because eventually that technology will drain the frequencies that are built into that disc. Can you wear an Apple Watch? Don't wear anything electronic on the same side that your disc is on. So when we do demos, we always tell folks, that, you know, is that a watch? You point to their wrist. Yes, put it on your other wrist or take it off, okay? If you have an Oura ring at your finger, that's fine. But the key is you want that wrist or your foot. You don't wear an Apple Watch on your foot. You shouldn't wear an Apple Watch on your wrist. You don't want any technology near that disc, because you want the disc to be able to do what it's designed to do, which is to trigger the release of GABA to downregulate the sympathetic side of the autonomic nervous system. Okay, I'm looking at other questions. I feel exhausted.
Yes, let's move on to rescue, I think, Boyd.
Sure.
A few questions about feeling exhausted after doing rescue,
Yeah.
not falling asleep during rescue, and
look,
you to replace meditation, I guess.
Yeah, that happens because, remember, each and every one of us comes into NuCalm in a different condition based on what's going on in our lives and what's going on in our bodies. So if you're having a hard time with rescue, the only answer is to keep doing it and power through it, because it'll get better. Remember, consistent use of rescue, specifically rescue and PowerNap supplementing, will help you not only break down stress and anxiety, you can build resiliency to stress, okay? But you got to build a habit. The biggest issue with everything in life that we know, right? Whether it's diet, exercise, NuCalm, you got to build a good habit. If you don't build a good habit, if you're inconsistent, that's okay. Doing something's better than nothing. But the reality is, it's not going to be as effective as if you worked out every day, or you ate a healthy diet every day, or you did NuCalm every day or every other day, depending on what your body needs. There's also that effect if you wake up and you're tired. Again, don't loop it, but do a longer session. If you can't do a longer session, so I'll give you an example. Say you topped off your sleep in the morning with 30, 40 minutes of rescue. You still feel tired. You got to get up and go to work. Depending on when you come home and you're free and when you go to sleep, think of that time period. In the evening when you're done, when you could do your first evening power nap or short duration rescue versus when you go to sleep, do a second session. Again, it's always better to do longer. So if you wake up and you're tired or you're exhausted in a sense, it's because your body needs more rescue. It's not that it's not working. You need more. You need longer, or you need twice a day until you get your body healthy. And I often recommend to folks, there's something called social jet lag. Anybody know what that means? Social jet lag means I get up at 6 o'clock every day, 5 days a week, but I get to sleep in on Saturday or Sunday. What you're doing is you're actually working against perfecting your 24-hour circadian rhythm. You should, and I shared this with somebody a couple of weeks ago. They said they have listened to it. Now they get up at the same time 7 days a week, and it makes a difference. Why? Your body wants a routine. Your body wants you to go to sleep every day at the same time and wake up at the same time. Okay, so if you are tired, your body's saying do more rescue. And the more you do, the healthier your body's going to do. And I also would recommend this. If you have that weekend and you have a regular schedule during the week, take a time period to do 100 minutes or 120 minutes. Think of this. 100 or 120 minutes of rescue is almost taking an extra night's sleep. Right. And especially if you have a bad night's sleep or a low duration hours of sleep one day during the week, you can still catch up, make up for it to get your body prepared again for the next week, if that makes sense. But you need to keep powering through any of those things. So somebody did ask, I think I addressed it. What does it mean if I don't fall asleep during rescue? That's okay. You're not necessarily supposed to be unconscious, but if you're kind of lightheaded or if you're out of it a bit, rescue is still more than likely working. You don't have to be unconscious for it to work. If you do dip into an unconscious state, down just below theta into delta, that's okay. Your body's saying, I need deep sleep now. Okay. I'm going to go back to some other questions. Just scan. Before using this, while it's still affixed to the paper strip, how long can it be left out of the protected bag before? Okay. That's a loaded question. We can't tell. If I took them out of the bag and put them next to a phone or computer, that's going to start to take those frequencies out. If you set them over in a corner by themselves and there's nothing near them, it's not going to work as fast, but you always ultimately it's habit forming, right? You lock your doors at night, you put your disc back in the bag. Do that religiously every time. Peel one off, use it. If you want to do a double and put one on your foot and your wrist, great. But put them back in the bag, seal the bag. That's the response that'll protect the disc. And we don't have like a shelf life for them. It's not like they expire in 4 years.
You want to talk about rescue and meditation, Boyd?
Sure. So somebody asked earlier the question, Monica, can you read this? Monica, can you read the specific question? Because I'm looking for it.
Yeah, it's just about, can you use rescue to replace meditation?
Yeah. You can, but I tell you, you're better using flow state. The other way to look at it is rescue or PowerNap will better prepare your body for meditation. Why? Because we've already taken your autonomic nervous system down to deep theta to REM sleep. So if you used rescue to prepare for meditation, normally when you meditate, where we target flow state, for instance, which is our form of meditation, is at 7.83 hertz, which is kind of the top of theta and just below alpha. So you can use flow state as a form of meditation, right? It'll create a form that'll make you feel like you're meditating, give you creativity, etc., relaxation, but not deep recovery like rescue. So you can either use rescue to prep for meditation, but remember when you come back to consciousness at the end of a rescue track, we're bringing you back up to 12 hertz, 12, 13 hertz. And you're trying to go back down to 7.5, 8 hertz in meditation. Ultimately, I would tell you to experiment. Try flow state, try rescue. You can use flow state, we know, to replace or enhance your meditation. And even though we generally say use flow state, with headphones, noise canceling headsets, you can also try it on a speaker if you're trying to meditate and you don't want something in your ear. But I would tell you rescue is better for accelerated recovery, but it would enhance your ability to meditate, if that answers the question in a different way.
And I just posted the article that we have on the case study we have with Brother Craig Marshall and how he was using meditation. Meditation.
Perfect. So everybody, if you can, take a second to go into the chat, open that link and save that link to your desktop, and you can read that later. It's a great article because we had a pre-discussion between Amy and Monica and myself, and we covered that. Okay, let's see what else, Monica, that we haven't answered. Because if not, I'll slip into talking about deep sleep.
I think we've answered everything on the.
Okay. And feel free, by the way, at this point too, is the wrist more ideal than the foot? Yes, the wrist is more ideal than the foot. One, it's easier. And And it's closer to your heart than your foot, quite honestly, because your leg's longer. The reason it's always left side, so let me explain that. Your heart is not in the center of your chest cavity, it's on your left side. So the reason Dr. Holloway always instructed us, disc goes on the left wrist, disc goes on the left foot, it's always closer to your heart. Your legs and your arms are pericardial meridians. So think of that as an HOV lane to your heart, okay? There is one more spot, maybe, Monica, can we throw that up too in the view? There's a third place that you can put a disc. Again, I had somebody the other week who they couldn't. I've had somebody who had a wrist cast or something. So in between the lower shoulder blade or scapula, if you see that point 11, and it's below that blade and toward your spine, you can put one there, and that's another, you see the pericardial meridians right through there. Okay, so that's the spine in the middle. And then we see that circle with the other alternative disc placement. Okay, and we have that. If anybody needs that, we can get that to you in a PDF, etc. Okay, I'm going to flip over back into the chat, and I think what we'll do is let's talk about deep sleep a little bit, and then maybe we'll come back to also our 7 chakras discussion. Okay, I'm just looking at deep sleep. Okay, let's go back to sleep cycles. What happens if you don't get enough sleep? Okay, there's a great sleep researcher. He's not affiliated with us. His name is Matt Walker. He's got some really interesting TED Talks. He's got a master series on the Delta, if you're flying Delta in their in-flight entertainment. One of the things he brings up, his research says, if you get less than 5 hours of sleep, you're reducing the immunology cells your body needs to reproduce every night to fight a disease state, to fight off colds and viruses, by up to 70%. And that includes things like killer cells that fight cancer. So we've done Jim's work with the Comprehensive Cancer Wellness Institute as part of the Hippocrates Health Institute, their program for almost a decade now with Dr. Ranicky for 9+ years with stage 4 cancer patients. And we actually got a feedback the other week that somebody who Jim had worked with in October was like already in remission. So we know this works. Why? So think of all the things that disrupt your sleep. If you had cancer, the treatments can really screw up your body, right? If you are premenopausal or menopause, if you've had any traumatic brain injury, any kind of disruption of injury to the brain, all of that puts stress on the body and causes often the inability to sleep. That inability to sleep is going to accelerate our demise. So that's why NuCalm becomes more and more important. And that's why building habits, what we talk about it as a team all the time is we have got to work with our friends who are customers to build good habits with NuCalm, because those good habits lead to improved quality of life. Your body feels better. You're able to react more. You're not reacting to stress, etc. Many of you know this, some of you may not. Once you trigger fight or flight, that's your 40 million-year-old midbrain. And we as a human being cannot just say, I'm not scared anymore. Stop the cortisol, stop the adrenaline. It doesn't work that way. We as human beings cannot cognizantly or cognitively rather stop our fight or flight mechanism. That's our old, not the cerebral cortex, not our more developed frontal cortex. That's our old-fashioned 40 million-year-old brain that puts us in a fight or flight. That is a flush of adrenaline, a flush of cortisol, and our body now is hyper vigilant. You can't just turn that off. But that's where NuCalm can help us. For those who've had a TBI or PTSD, that's where we can help control your emotions and put you into a better state. Okay, deep sleep. I'm looking at consistency of rescue used daily. We can tell you if you can use rescue 4 to 5 times a week, longer, better, a couple long sessions, it's supplement on a weekend with a longer one or a day off, you're going to be better off. If you can do it every day, better yet. For those who have an injury or recovering or dealing with any, and there was a question about COVID sequelae or long haul COVID, anything that is the same thing like surgery. I had somebody yesterday said to me, they got into a car accident and then somebody else 2 days ago was prepping for surgery. And I'm going to talk to her on Friday. That in itself, and we all know when we go to have surgery, there's always some built up anxiety in us, etc. we've had professional sports athletes. One of them was Patrick Kane years ago, the Chicago Blackhawks, who broke his collarbone in February of 2015. And their trainer talked to our team, and Patrick started doing NuCalm twice a day. There's an article out there, you can find it on the internet, that said great surgery, 12 weeks of recovery, but the Stanley Cup playoffs were coming up. Patrick did NuCalm twice a day. What does that do for you? When we're in REM sleep, you're getting red blood cell reproduction. You're cleansing your mitochondria. You're cleaning your cells. In deep sleep, you're reproducing tissues. Between deep sleep and REM sleep being theta, which is rescue deep sleep at night, rescue power nap during the day, and even a little bit on the top end of theta with flow state, you're replenishing your body. And if you need to overcome something like a surgery, et cetera, or prep for it even, you can do that by applying a double duration of rescue a day or a much longer session, because you're going to accelerate your REM sleep, and pure REM sleep is the best thing you can do for your body to recover. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about deep sleep, and I'm watching our time too. So I mentioned here on the left, I want to share some things I've talked to people about too in the last couple of weeks. And please know that folks like Monica, myself, Amy, Maddie, Sophia, we all jump into support and bail her out, and we answer questions. I love doing support in the evening when people, have a question, and then we can respond to them real quick. Let's talk about deep sleep. I had a customer the other day who said, "Hey, it's not working. I'm playing the 8 hours and I'm listening to him." And he said, "I'm starting it and I'm playing it for about an hour, and then I go to sleep and it's not doing anything." So make sure I mute. So what happened? In the 8 hours of deep sleep, and you look at the left side of the app, the 50 minutes, let me switch back on. Okay, the 8 hours, the first 50 minutes of the 8 hours is the delta frequency. It's the same exact track on the left column. So 50 minutes of sleep melodies is the first 50 minutes of 8 hour sleep melodies. After that first 50 minutes of any of the 8 hour sides of deep sleep, it's beautiful music. Our music producer went around the world for like 18, 24 months with high fidelity microphones, recording sounds of nature, cities, everything. He's compressed all this, he synthesizes it, and he's got this really nice music after the first 50 minutes. But that's just kind of like any music, right? It's not targeted music for like delta frequency. So recap, the 50 minutes on the left side is the same first 50 minutes that's delta frequencies, isochronic brain waves, targeting deep sleep at 0.5 hertz. After that, it's just nice music. What happens if we wake up in the middle of the night? And especially if you can't fall back asleep. If you can fall back asleep, great. If you can't, just simply, I'm going to show you what happens. See, once I hit start, it says restart and end. Say it's ended. All I want to do is just go back and start over and play it again. You notice when you're done with the track, it'll say all done or repeat. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you see that in your deep sleep, you can't get back to sleep, just hit repeat. And that will give you 50 more minutes of the delta targeted frequencies. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I think I mentioned it earlier. I know I did, but I'll say it again. Caution statements. Here's what not to do. And this happens, folks. That's why we cover things like this. Don't play deep sleep within about 2 hours of your natural wake up. Okay. Why? Again, you're down here on the bottom of the frequency range at 0.5. Your body's firing cortisol like the space shuttle rocket boosters, and we're trying to anchor you down to 0.5 hertz, and your cortisol is trying to lift you up and to wake you up in a couple hours. So don't do that, because that effect would be you may wake up groggy. Instead, say you wake up an hour early, and you still want to sleep or whatever, put on a 50-minute rescue or a 70-minute rescue and top off your sleep. When do you not do rescue and power nap? We say generally within 3 hours when you naturally go to sleep. All right. But that depends on you individually when you naturally go to sleep. So if your natural sleep time is around 12 a.m. and you're tired at 7 p.m. and you want to do something, do a power nap for 20 minutes. Okay. Worst case, do a 30-minute rescue, but don't do a 40 or 50 or 70-minute, because you're refreshing your body. And what you'll naturally and inadvertently do when you wake up and refresh your body, you're going to do micro adjustments to your circadian rhythm. You may not get to sleep till 12:30, 1 o'clock. So Don't do deep sleep within a couple hours when you wake up. Don't do rescue or any technology like flow state if you can avoid it. Power nap within
Okay.
about 3 hours, 4 hours when you go to sleep naturally.
Oops.
Headphones, there's a question there, I think, right? Eye masks. Okay, you already answered it. But bottom line is, when our brain sees daylight, that tells us we're not supposed to be sleeping. So that's why we sell eye masks. If you're doing your rescue or power nap during the day, wear an eye mask or go into a very dark room. But if your body detects light, and remember this, the visual cortex is the majority of our cerebral cortex, it's telling you not to sleep.
Where
So
you
that may
get
disrupt your ability to use a rescue or a power nap. Any other questions?
I don't know.
when you don't know.
Hey, Juan, do you mind going
Juan
on
can
mute
get-
if you can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hello. Oh, ¿cómo va? Speaking with.
Oh, yeah. Do you mind going on mute?
On mute.
Thank you.
is it better to use a set of stereo speakers or a single speaker? If we're talking about ignite, more so even focus, deep sleep, it doesn't matter. You know, if you get stereo sound, that's better. Whatever the better quality of the speaker, the better the effect of the isochronic waves of deep sleep, of focus. So I use a little Bluetooth speaker. It's like $100. It's called the JBL Flip speaker. They're up to the JBL Flip 6s now. That's a great speaker. Anything that's got good, you know, buy a major, you know, a JBL, a Sony, those are better quality manufacturers. That's what you want to use. Let's talk real quick. You may want to take a note on this. I'm going to mention this because I had like 3-4 people ask. This always happens. So let me open the app. Okay, you see the new Ignite, right? Everybody gets access to our new tracks. We expose it to everybody. So here's the new Ignite. Guess what? What happened to the flow state that was 7 chakras? Okay. What happened to the 7 chakras that was not rescue, but the power nap? Anytime we take a new journey that comes up across the top, once it disappears, it doesn't go away. It just goes into rotation. So that Ignite triumphant will end up being just under Ignite. Okay, when we take it off of the headline space. So if you're looking for any of the nomenclature for the 3 tracks that we have that balance your 7 chakras, I'm going to tell you what they are. In Rescue 30, and the way to find it, I'm going to hit start. And down here underneath
What did you
is a
just
nomenclature. This one says ST3011.
page?
That's a nice Rescue 30. That's not the 7 chakras. I hit end. I hit continue. I go back to rescue. I go back to 30. I play again. If you see that now, I can tell you that's ST3003 parentheses 7 chakras. Okay. In power nap, it is rescue, or it's power nap 30, and there's only one timing, right? 20 minutes, 3016. That's the 7 chakras, 3016. In flow state, under flow state 30, ST3017 is also the 7 chakras for flow state. Okay. You may have noticed too that we've been on a pretty good pace of, you know, bringing out a new journey about every 6 weeks right now. We've released 3 this year, and we've got a couple more coming out. We'll have a 60-minute focus. We have some other special things that we won't tell you yet coming up. But I will tell you this, that for those of you who know this, it's very simple. This is one thing I always encourage people to do. Life is about habits. If you don't build a good habit with NuCalm and you let it slip away, I've had people, I talked to a mastermind again Tuesday, and she just kind of let it go away, and she just came back to it, and she's got the TBI and PTSD. And she said, as soon as she started back using NuCalm, especially the rescue, she started feeling better. We have a lot of people that have different ailments. They have 6 things they're trying. I would tell you, if you ever get in that condition or you have friends like that, tell them to stop everything and just try NuCalm for a month and just focus on rescue. We know it works. Many of you know it works. We recognize some of the names here that have joined us today. We wouldn't be here if it didn't work. We wouldn't get a patent
We don't know.
on systems and methods for balancing, maintaining the health of the human autonomic nervous system. You don't get that because you paid some guy $50 at the patent office, right? You get that with clinical research that says what we're getting is consistent parasympathetic dominance because of all our clinical testing showing that. That's the difference. What are the hertz used to balance each of the 7 chakras? It's the same targeted range, and there's certain things, quite honestly, Jessica, that we won't get into releasing about our technology, et cetera. Just know that the 7 chakras are all either, there's that one in flow state, one in PowerNap, and one in rescue, and they're all targeted around the 4 hertz for the rescue and the PowerNap, but we won't get into specifics around what we do with our software because that part of that becomes proprietary to us. Side sleeping headphones, I've never heard of them. Monica, have you ever heard of side sleeping headphones?
Yeah, so it's just the ones that like they're a little bit more flat on the side
Okay.
so that you can lay on your side.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're totally fine.
And there are headphones that deal with bone connectivity. I mean, when I was in the military and we had special forces, we had whisper mics, and they basically, you can literally whisper in the air under a halo shoot. You can hear each other because it's the resonance off your bones is picking up the you basically whispering in midair. So there are bone conductive headphones too that help you as well. You want to, your key for the headphones, you got to have a good quality manufacturing and you have good Bluetooth, a good noise canceling effect. So in a sense, if you're paying $40 or $50 for a headset, it may not be the same as a $300 headset. What else? What other questions? And if you need to, at this point, we've got about 7 minutes left. If you want to come off mute, just ask a question or share something with somebody else. Nothing? Noni said she has bone conducting headphones. Okay. I will tell you, we will have a sale coming up soon. A lot of people ask about discs. I tell folks the best time to buy discs is when they're on sale and to load up, especially if you're overseas too, because shipping internationally is expensive. If you have, I will share this with you too. If you have anybody who you want to expose NuCalm to, just have them reach out, give us the name, we can call them, give us a phone number, we can talk to them. We also would encourage you, if you want some one-on-one training, we will continue to do these member forums. We're going to try and do one every week. We're going to try and pick up the pace, and we'll vary it. Well, we always take predetermined questions. We will vary based on what you're looking for, what your questions are, and what you need to hear. All right, Monica's answered most of the questions in the chat. I'm going to go back on some of the other questions. Oh, this is a great one from previous call. Offline playback. All right, let me explain how to do this. If you look at my deep sleep, okay, well, let's not use deep sleep. You can use that too. But see, some of them have check marks, some don't. And if I go back to, say I'm going to go to Ignite, the new Ignite Triumphant, right? I don't have it downloaded. How do I download it? I'm going to press and hold. Let me do it from here. I can see it. See, now I get this pop-up that says download track. I'm now going to press that white down arrow and see how it kind of blurs out. And you should start to see a meter going across that it's downloading. You can see it moving now. It's checked. Once you get the check, that means it's downloaded. So if I want to play something offline, I'm going to go to my settings. I'm going to put it on airplane mode. Now I'm going to go to the app. This is the sequence too. You don't go to the app and then put it on airplane mode. You go to airplane mode, then you go to the app. See how that one's available now? The 13 is available. Let me go back and show you what's not available. See where in my deep sleep, a couple of deep sleep on the top right, these 8-hour sleep melodies and the 8-hour summer rain, it's not available. It's grayed out because I haven't downloaded it. I don't have that check mark. And it says offline playback. So here's the key about how long or how often you have to download. We use something under our digital rights management, which means that, so when you download, you're not actually downloading a track to your phone, you're downloading it to your software on your device. There's a difference. If you're an annual customer or a mastermind, even a mastermind, you don't get to download it for 5 years. You have to, or lifetime, you have to download it every year. Why? That's how we protect the rights and the software is for anybody who's an annual or a multi-year, or like you got to download it once a year. And that's based on when your subscription renews. If you're a monthly, I believe we give it to you for 30 days, could be 2 months. So if you get on a plane and you say, oh, I downloaded it, now they're not available, you got to check before your trip to make sure you've downloaded and the check marks are there right before your trip. Otherwise, those tracks or those journeys won't be available.
If,
So
as long as you
off-
connect at some point to Wi-Fi or cellular data, it will automatically renew the license. It's just if you have a device that you keep offline all the time, once a month, you should just connect to Wi-Fi and let all the licenses renew.
All right, let me go back and just look. We haven't talked much about focus, and we got about 3 minutes left. So everybody understands that focus
We
is
do have one more
basically-
question too, Boyd, actually.
All right, well, yeah, what does it say? Okay.
So it's about rescue, interrupting the rescue journey. What happens when you interrupt it, and can you end early?
Okay. So remember we talked about what happens during rescue PowerNap. We do the entrainment to drop you to theta, suspend you, and then we bring you out. If you wake up in the middle, and I've had somebody before say, why can't I just go back in? Because once you're cognizant, you've reversed the entrainment process. So you can't go right back in. I can tell you, you can try and relax your mind and see if you'll drop back into theta, but otherwise you may need to just restart it. Okay. If you feel like you're done with rescue midway, should you stay to the end? If you wake up early, that's called getting to your own natural endpoint. That means your body said, I didn't need to stay in rescue 30 or rescue 50. I got up at 20, 30 minutes. I can tell you when I was traveling on my road trip the other week, that happened to me a couple of times. I didn't stay 30 minutes into a rescue. I got up once at 20 and one at 27. Okay. I also know that I can try it, and it's very hard to go back down when you're in the middle of the track. If you're exhausted enough and your body's still needing it, you may be able to go back down a little bit, but I can't promise that'll work all the time because we're not training your brain in the middle of the track. We're holding you at that 4 hertz level. So, and once you're cognizant, you're back at 12 hertz. Once you're alert and awake, you're at 12. Our target for rescue and PowerNap is 4. So I would tell you, if you really want to go back and get more impact, go back and restart it and go back to the entrainment process. Focus is healthy at 15 to 30 hertz, 15 to 20 hertz. It just oscillates. You can play that throughout the day. A lot of us on our team too, we just put it on the 47-minute track and loop it throughout the day. Any other questions? I will share a couple things with you. One, if anybody here wants any one-on-one where you want to just talk to one of us and ask specific questions more specific to you or your experience with NuCalm, all you have to do is write in. If you want to talk to Monica specifically, you write in and say to support and say, hey, I want to connect with Monica. I want to connect with Boyd. We will do that. We will set up time. I have links. I often release my calendar to set up one-on-ones with people. I've got one scheduled right now, so I'm going to have to go. The other thing I would encourage you all to do, this would help us to help other people. If you felt the impact of NuCalm and you know what it's done for you, one thing I would ask, please go out to either the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and write a review. Give us a rating. Why? If you've had a profound impact from NuCalm, that means there's probably another 100,000 people that haven't heard of it yet. So the more you can help with those types of reviews and ratings that describes what we've helped you do, the more we can help other people in this world, which is part of our mission. All right, with that, it's 1:31. We will, within a couple days, send out the recording. If anybody's got any questions, write into us at support. I will put in my email real quick. It's in the chat. So it's boyd.relac or monica.magani or amy.song@nucalm.com, and we will respond. All right. We will have another forum. I believe it's next week. So for those of you who want to jump again and join us, please do. If not, this recording will be sent out. And thank you all for coming today.
Thanks, everyone.